Hello and welcome to Tank and AFV News. My name's Tom, and today I've got a little video here. This is from my trip last week to the Russell Military Museum, which is in Zion, Illinois, which is right on the state border of Wisconsin. So it's about an hour north of Chicago or an hour south of Milwaukee. So if you're ever in the area, either city, it's not too far away. And it's a relatively small museum with a large outdoor area full of all sorts of stuff. It's essentially the owner's a fellow named Mark. He's usually working in the front, either him or his wife or his son. And he has just amassed an impressive collection of stuff. So on the inside part here, you can sort of see as I'm walking through the camera. Obviously, I'm recording this audio after the fact. Here's a U.S. half track, World War II era, and I can't really stop and videotape everything that's in here because it's packed in here pretty tight. All sorts of stuff. The interior here is the stuff that's pretty much in restored condition. So you can see a bunch of Jeeps, mortar, 57 millimeter anti-tank gun, some bazookas there in the case. Everywhere you look, every corner, there's something in there. That's a Chinese military motorcycle. Obviously, a Stuart light tank behind it there, and uniforms, lots of models, just things that the owners picked up over the years and turned into this uh, very interesting museum, sort of tucked away in the north part of the Midwest. 37 millimeter anti-tank gun. Say there's those Jeeps, a little bit more. Some stuff that I don't even know what the designation is off the top of my head. This thing up here that we're just looking at is a prototype of some sort of predecessor to the Hummer. There's a lot of these little boat models. What he had told me when I was here 2 years ago, the owner, was that those were donated. There was a guy who just made hundreds of those in his spare time, just all scratch built out of mostly wood. So a lot of these glass cases contain models. There's a Tiger tank model, sort of slightly beat up condition, and just more equipment. Here's a whoops, there's the ceiling. You'll have to excuse the cam work, just sort of trying to get through this tight museum with a little cheap Canon camcorder that I bought. Some more tank models of various types. And, I didn't really ask him where the model, I think a lot of the models either were just collections he either bought or were donated. Radial R975 there, I believe. And here is a Sherman tank. He does own several of them. This is one of the first ones he bought. The story he told me was that one ended up in private hands after the war. A developer in Philadelphia was using it, a couple of these for knocking down buildings. They had removed the gun mantling gun. So he acquired it and then got a replacement mantling gun for it. So this is one of his restored Shermans. More uniforms now. On the side here, you'll see these those little spots there. Those, he said, when he was much younger, him and his brother foolishly took some pot shots at it with, I believe he said some 30-06. I'm not sure. The ricochets came back, and he said it taught him a lesson about shooting at armor plate. Here we have a priest to our left. So all sorts of, as I said, it's pretty tightly packed with stuff there. Uh, it's not a large room. It's maybe the size of, a school gymnasium. But if you stop and actually look at everything in there, you can waste quite a bit of time. Here's a little hovercraft of some sort. Radial engine. I don't know my aircraft engines well enough to know what it is. A whole bunch more airplane models in this back part. So tons of these cases filled with models. There's a better picture of the priest. That right there is about the extent. Some of the stuff will have labels like that explaining what it is. Most of it does not. If you're looking for a very sort of polished museum experience, this is not really what you're going to find here. It's, it has the feel of somebody who, their collection got out of hand, so they decided to open it up to the public. And yeah, just a few model airplanes, as you can see. So if you're a model builder, you like looking at models, it's a good place to go. I was down here with actually a college friend of mine who lives in Wisconsin who works for a model railroader, and he said some of his coworkers that are a fine scale modeler, which they share the room with, that told him about this place. So he came and joined me, even though he doesn't really care about military stuff so much. He still found it interesting. A few more radial engines, and then also a fellow named Chris who I had met a couple years ago when I was out in Knoxville, Virginia, for the sort of tank farm event there, and So it's fun to see some old acquaintances and friends. Here's some of those just cases full of boats. And then this crazy looking thing, that is not an actual vehicle. That's like a mock-up of a Russian tilt rotor prototype. So it's really just a plastic sort of display thing that somehow he got his hands on. Here we got some NASA related stuff. I don't really know enough about space exploration to say anything beyond that. Explosive device protection suit, or I'm sure there's a more technical term for it. And Cadillac Gauge Commando. This is sort of the little Vietnam display. And a Huey, an engine. If you like Vietnam era Huey helicopters, once we get outside, you'll see there's dozens of them in various different states and conditions. Some anti-tank weapons, a Piat there in the background. More airplane models. And like I said, more helicopters and BTR-40. So one of the few Soviet vehicles that are here. There's majority of his stuff is U.S. built, but there are a few foreign vehicles. I assume that's a engine for a Bradley. The Bradley model sitting on there. Some other various types of engines. That's pretty much it for the inside. So that's all the stuff that's kind of in restored museum presentable condition. Now we venture out into the outside area, which is a sort of huge, wonderful junkyard of military stuff. As you can see, he's got a sign there telling people not to steal or damage stuff, which has been an issue. I'm not even sure that's some sort of, I believe, training turret. This here is the turret from, I don't even remember the designation. It was one of those prototypes leading up to the Bradley. Let's see if you can read it there. Oh, yeah, it's barely legible, but yeah, somehow he got his hands on that. So he's got a few different things that are prototypes and one-offs. Pander, I'm not even sure if that was there when I was here 2 years ago. That might be something new. He's got this MRAP, a few other MRAPs in the back of different types. This one's interesting because he also has a training rig he bought that was for training troops to how to exit one of those vehicles once they've been upended. We'll see that pretty soon here. Tons of Humvees, trucks, heavy haulers, all sorts of stuff, but then, you know, a ton of combat vehicles too. Okay, there's that training device, so you can see it's sort of the frame of an MRAP, and the whole thing can be tilted on its side. This area right here is sort of the area that he lets kids crawl on. The rest of the vehicles they ask people not to crawl on. And there are cameras everywhere, he says. He has pretty much every square inch of this place is under surveillance, so in case somebody does climb on top of something and hurt themselves or the equipment, he'll know about it. Here's a couple M113s. He said his M113s are mostly all in running condition. These had actually been down in Chicago earlier in the day or the day before for part of a movie that was being filmed. There's some, I'm not even sure what they are. They look like boats from the front, but they have wheels, some sort of amphibious wheeled vehicle. A little outside my zone of expertise. Walker Bulldog. We've got Vietnam era marine amphibious tracked landing vehicle there. We got M42 Duster. He actually has several Dusters. 8-inch self-propelled gun, an M60. He's got a few, at least a couple M60s, different types. I know there's an A3 that we'll see later. Another sort of Duster that's seen better days there next to it. And that, the tow missile launcher there on the M113 chassis, that one, I think, when I was there 2 years ago, he said that was new. I think he might have gotten that at the Little Field auction. That is a T117 steel prototype, another M113. There's the 3-inch gun used by the tank destroyer units in World War II. We got a half-track with the anti-aircraft mount. This one I think he refers to as his Israeli M113. You can see it's got sort of these firing ports on the side of it there. M114 and Higgins boat. If you turn around here so you can see the highway in the distance, from the highway the most visible thing are these fighter jets. They are far from complete. They're, there's no engines. They're missing a lot of other components, but still, it's impressive just to be able to walk around and see the most of a fighter plane. So you got an F-15, F-16. Fighter planes, not my zone of expertise, but for those that enjoy that, those are there. Bunch more. Got there's a Sherman tank back there. Got a heavy hauler. He told us when we were talking to the owner that at one point he had, I think he said he bought like either 8 or 12 Sherman tanks he bought back from Israel at one point. Here's a Sexton. It's interesting to see. And I don't think he has all of those Shermans anymore. Some of them he traded for other things. As he said, a lot of this collection he built by trading, rather than just buying stuff outright, pulling trades. Some more Sherman parts. There's an M50 Israeli Sherman turret, another Sherman turret that looks like it came off of a range, a Sherman-based recovery vehicle, and yeah, just so much stuff. Like I said, the first time I was here 2 years ago, I really didn't know what to expect, but not quite this. And my friends that were there, I sort of told them, and they're like, there's more stuff here than we thought. What's this thing called? M548s, I think. He's got just 6 of them. Why not? Some more heavy haulers. You can sort of see an M60A3 back there. There's a Continental AVD 1790. He actually has a couple of those laying around. Of course, powering the Patton series. Another M4 Sherman there. That's looks, I believe, an eighth. Most of his Shermans, I think, are A3s. That one's a 105 millimeter howitzer version. Next to it is what was a half track that somebody tried to convert into more of a civilian use vehicle. Here we've got an M40, a couple M47s. Sort of going on. There's the back of that Israeli Sherman again. So it kind of gives you an idea of what all to expect. It's, like I said, I believe they said the property was formerly a used car lot, and obviously you can see it's a little overgrown. The concrete's, some of the vehicles have sunk into the concrete a little bit, but this is literally a mom and pop organization. I mean, it's one guy and his family running it. So, and they have across the street, we didn't really get to see it closely, a new building that's sort of where they're doing restorations on stuff. So I suspect there's more things that are in different states of repair over there. This back area here is where it's sort of the roughest part because you got a little bit of water there, but you can see another Sherman back there on a trailer bed. There's also an M48 back there that's in real rough shape that's on a trailer bed. Somewhere in the property, I didn't really see it, he does have an M1 Abrams that the government cut up into many, many pieces before they let him have it, and it's in unrecognizable condition. And then there's also, and I don't know if I got it on this walk around of the video, there's it's a British Centurion tank that was modified to look like an M1 Abrams, and it was used as a prop for the Courage Under Fire movie with Denzel Washington. We'll see if that shows up. I'm not sure. I sort of was doing this at the end of the day, doing a little loop through just with the video camera, and it was so sunny I was having real trouble because I could not see for the life of me that I was getting so much glare off the view screen that I wasn't even sure what the camera was pointing at, but it's turned out a little better than I suspected. So now we're sort of walking back toward the airplane part. Now, if you do make it out to this part of the world, the Chicago-Milwaukee area, one other thing worth checking out, and we had been there the day before this location, is Cantini Park outside of Chicago. It's in the Wheaton, Illinois area, and it is the estate of a fellow by the last name of McCormick, who I believe he was the Chicago Tribune owner. Anyway, pretty important person in Chicago history. He also had been a colonel in the 1st Infantry Division during World War I, the Big Red One. So his estate, after he passed, it was converted into sort of this large park area. On those grounds is the museum for the 1st Infantry Division. Then outside the museum, they have about 15 different tanks on display, different types of U.S. vehicles. interestingly enough, they allow people to crawl on them. It's one of the few places I know where you can crawl on the tank. So the nice thing is you can get up on top of it if you want to get pictures up there. Bad thing is it's sort of hard to get pictures that don't have kids in them because the kids are crawling all over the vehicles. And then the museum itself is nice. It's a much more polished sort of professional museum. So you kind of can experience the two different extremes of a very polished museum with a relatively small amount of armor. Then go over here to Russell where you can see a whole lot of interesting stuff and displayed. And well, as you can see, it's not necessarily the prettiest displays in the world. Here we have a missile. I've seen pictures of that thing. I don't even know what the name of it is, honestly. More trucks, Humvees, aircraft. It's just a collection of stuff. And this video doesn't really convey. It's sort of hard to see all the things that are actually. So you can see like those Humvees go back 3 or 4 deep, in a few rows. So. Just a fighter jet, the mix in there, and then this little dingo or ferret, I forget which one it was. And then on the left here, jet in very rough condition. One of the many Huey helicopters. As we come around here, you'll see there's quite a few of them. I kind of regret, watching this footage now. There are, like I said, there's a back corner there that I kind of forgot to walk into here at the end of the day, as far as the tanks. That has that Centurion that Vismodded into an Abrams. There's an M60A3 back there. I think there's at least another M48 somewhere in the collection as well. So there is just all sorts of things to discover and see back here. And like I said, if you catch the owner on a day where he's in a talkative mood, he's got quite a few stories to tell. As you can imagine, anybody who's willing to sort of collect... small tactical missile. Anyway, if you do catch him on a day where he's in a talkative mood, he's got all sorts of stories, and probably fair to characterize him as a character. You sort of have to be to have the gumption to collect all this stuff, and there's a fair amount of wrangling you have to do when you're collecting military equipment, as far as just dealing with the government, the regulations, and all that kind of thing. And then also just running a place that's open to the public. As we come around here, see those amphibious things again. There is one of his latest acquisitions, which is up here, kind of hidden behind a bunch of stuff. And from what he told us, it's fairly new. And yep, there it is. It's an M3 Bradley. He's not, from what he said, he's got a little bit of pushback from the government about the fact that he owns this. Apparently, they're not that keen on private citizens owning Bradleys. I can't imagine why. But hopefully he's able to hang on to this, because it's pretty darn cool. You don't see a lot of Bradleys anywhere on display, really. A few places, but this is the first time I've really got to go get up close to one. And then as we come back around here, we're going to get back up into the airplane area. We were really fortunate because this was mid-October and the weather was really nice. Nice, cool fall day, but the sun was out. So I'm very fortunate for that. It's never fun when you drive a bunch of, ways to something and and the weather's no good. And here we are back in the area that's open sort of from the highway that's visible. Here we have an A-10. The Warthog, always I think a popular aircraft, particularly for those that are interested in tanks, since it is the most famous tank busting aircraft. Fortunately, a lot of these aircraft are missing components, but this one, the 7-barreled 30mm Gatling cannon is still intact there. You can go up and look at it and actually reach in there and feel the rifling on the inside of the barrels if you feel so inclined. Well, and that's the end of the video footage I took last weekend, but I thought I'd end with some still images I took 2 years ago of that. The Centurion M1 Vismod, because that is a cool vehicle, and I didn't get it in the footage as I was walking around. So that wraps up my quick video tour of the Russell Military Museum, Zion, Illinois. If you are out in the Chicago, Milwaukee area, stop by. It's well worth the time. Thank you much. Bye.